All right. Sorry about that. I know that I'm a little late. Thank you for waiting. Yep, I tried to start at 7 like I have been doing, trying to get this started just a little bit earlier because we are generally covering just a little bit more stuff, and I'm giving a few of my comments and commentary on it, not just rapid fire news. So, yeah, that's what's going on. Now, if you haven't seen that, I have started another channel where I'm taking bites of this. So if you do miss and you just don't have the time to get all of it, and you're going to want just the cloud news or just some of my a little bit of my commentary, I am releasing those over the week. Hopefully, I get to the place where I release all of those in the same week. I actually have one left from last week that I'm going to be releasing. Just getting into the flow of doing that and making it really, really fast for you all. So, yep, that's what I'm doing. I will leave a link to that in the description of this, as well as it's in the last video as well. So, or the last news. That being said, all of these news go completely unlisted after this week. They will always be in the news. There's a playlist for news. You can always find them there. They're just unlisted. You're not going to see them in my normal page. So if you're looking for them, make sure to bookmark the news section, and they're always going to show up there. All right, that's it for my updates. Let's jump into it. All right, there's a couple things that I don't have news articles for, but I wanted to talk about. Usually we do security, cloud, and then blogs and open source. That's generally the format. I'm going to take a quick thing to make 2 comments about things that I'm kind of not commenting about. But I wanted you guys to know that I'm not ignoring it because I know it's a topic in the news recently. But I really don't know enough on them to talk intelligently on them. The first is there seems to be some tech layoffs or hiring freezes, but I haven't actually seen it through the majority of the market. The majority of the market still seems really hot for developers, software engineers, and whatnot. I do think that there is some choppy waters ahead as far as some of it goes, but so far it's been of a few very specific companies. And I do think that this comes from some unrealistic expectations. Like, at some point, Facebook had to stop growing because, well, they have over half the world's population, and most likely the majority of the people that are online. And so, of course, they have fewer subscribers. It was kind of an unrealistic expectation for them to have more. Now, that being said, I do think there is some, but again, I don't know enough to really talk on it too much, and so I'm not going to. I'm going to be continuing to monitor if anything really big happens. Of course, I'm going to let you guys be the first to know. That being said, the second topic that I'm really not going to talk on right now, and is one that I would like to help find a solution for in the end. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Again, I don't know that I have enough information. It seems like there was some unrest at Kubecon. I have seen basically polar opposite tweets of like, oh, it's so fantastic to finally meet, X person in person and whatnot. And then there's been some that makes me think that there's some disrest. I know that, and the thing is, I don't want you to judge any one group too quickly. There's always mistakes and accidents. It's not even necessarily a desired thing. Sometimes myself, for example, when I get nervous, I talk more. Which is a bad thing. You should talk less when you're nervous. That's my general rule of thumb. But when I get nervous, I talk more, and so like that could make me accidentally do something. So there's always 2 sides to a story, and that's actually what I would really like to start doing, is getting people's stories out. So if you have a story, if you don't want to share it publicly, you could talk to me, or if you do want to share it publicly, you could still talk to me, because I would love to understand those stories and what open source means to you and what the community means to you. So for me, I've never been a big fan of like the CNCF for a couple of reasons, because to me, that's not the community, but a lot of people have held to that as like their community. And so I see how that could hurt more. Anyways, not going to talk too much about it right now because, yeah, that, I don't know enough. I don't know enough about what happened. I know a couple incidents, I know a couple of them, but, yeah, I don't know enough. Go away or I'll replace you with a simple shell script. Yeah. Okay, now you've baited me, rubber cable. So there's always this idea that we're going to replace ourselves with scripts. Okay? And that's a fantastic idea. And that's a fantastic idea. I see, there's a lot of things that we do to encourage this type of belief and thought. So we create Copilot and things like this that enable us to write code faster because it's basically a really, really great autocomplete. Now, I want to ask you, who develops Copilot? Is that more engineers? Who, Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, the proper thing, are fantastic. If you developed code in 2005, which is when I first started playing around with code, man, it was just like a text box. You know how much that sucks to develop code in? Who maintains that AI? Who maintains that AI pipeline? So if we're talking about AI pipelines, we can talk about Kubeflow. I can talk about Kubeflow for days. Who manages that? Who makes sure that it continues to run? Who makes sure that your AI is still running to do your job? Look, AI and automation has always empowered us to do more interesting jobs. The jobs that we automate away are jobs that are repetitious and don't require your creativity or your work and whatnot. So if you wanted a job, McDonald's still has burger flipping that allows you to not think and be creative in your job. But automating away those things allows you to do higher level things that you're usually more interested in doing. Most of us really want to just do our business logic. That's why there's like the allure to serverless. A lot of people jumped on that because the whole idea was you could forget about everything else and focus on your business logic, that value add to society. That's what you wanted to do, and that's what its whole selling point was for. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Rubber Cable. We're kind of like surfers. We're just staying one step ahead of the wave. I mean, that's what we have done. This is what humans have done in general. Who wants to be a farmer? There are some farmers. There are vastly fewer farmers than there were 500 years ago. Vastly fewer. And a lot of that is due to farming automation. What is tractors? Tractors is farming automation. There are some people that like farming and they still farm. But this is what we have done with everything. This isn't just new to tech. It's really not. This is what we have done consistently with every job you don't want to do. I mean, which is a lot of jobs. So, anyways, I don't know. I don't foresee that whole gonna program yourself right out of a job. And even with like AIs, we'll take Copilot. Let's say that there's a Copilot that's way better than Copilot. You still actually don't get yourself out of a job because who tells Copilot what you want to do? Well, the software engineer does. Even if the AI is better, somebody would have to tell that AI, and somebody would have to learn the quirks of that AI and learn to go into the code that AI creates and update it and ensure that it's good and all of those things. it's anyways, I don't foresee AI. AI is not our struggle. AI, I don't think so. Especially since I know the developers creating it. So, yep. Anyways, although Google, I didn't put this in the news, Google did state that by next year, mind you, 2023, they would have an AI capable of human uh human I almost said consensus because I say that consciousness. So we'll see if Google is lying to us or not. All right. Thank you, Rubber Cable, for derailing me before I even got railed. That sounded a lot worse than I meant for it to. Like I said, when I get nervous, which talking to a camera surprisingly makes me pretty nervous, I end up talking. It doesn't even make sense. All right, we're going to talk about the news. This is something about the community that I wish I don't actually like. And I know that a lot of people are going to disagree with me. I'm going to have you hear my side because I'm the one talking. I'd love to hear your side about it too, because I understand that my side isn't the only take on it. And I'm not even saying that this is necessarily bad. Just I don't initially like the sounds of it. I don't know why. Rubber Cable, this has happened to you in many of my streams. You keep getting messages held for review. The last one was your was your PHP script. So, anyways, it's fantastic. All right, so you know what? If you are worried about a recession and about that, the really the you know, inflation and stuff like that, these are serious, and I don't want to take too much off of them because people's livelihoods are at stake. The one thing I can tell you that you can do is to empower yourself. Join this channel. That's what we try to do here. I try to facilitate learning. I put my head and neck out there for the rest of you to hopefully learn. I learn a lot from you guys as well. And it's something that's going to future-proof you. And that's like the most I can say about that. Like as far as anybody goes, it goes right into what Rubber Cable said with staying one step ahead of that wavefront, and that's what we do. That's why we have to level up our game, and that's what I try to do here at the Null channel. That's not the only channel that you can join and do that and learn from, though. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying invest in yourself. You are you. You are the only you out there. And yeah, so do that. And if you want to do it here, I will join you. Anyways, I will join you. You can join me. We'll all join each other. All right. The software freedom, I'm not going to say that word, wins big step forward with open source rights. I don't necessarily agree with this. And hear me out. I'm going to force you to hear me out. The software, so basically they pushed back on the GPL2 for the Visio Smartcast Tvs. They argued that Visio used Linux source code and other open source software such as BusyBox, U-Boot, Bash, blah, 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 that's protected under the GPL v2. And this is where I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'm going to give you mine. I actually wish that they wouldn't do this. At least that's my current thinking. Again, we should always be open to thinking differently and changing how we think. But my gut reaction when I read this was, I wish you wouldn't. They are saying that because Visio used these things, they need to actually provide the software to the end user. All of their software stack, the entire stack. And the reason I have the knee-jerk reaction is it's like the AGPL. Can you use the AGPL? Yes, you can. But a lot of the times, companies just won't use the AGPL because there's fear of this. there's fear that they will maybe make a very, very minor misstep, a misstep in good faith, not necessarily a bad. There are definitely, and I don't know the Visio one because maybe it's a bad faith step. I can't tell you for sure. I don't know 100% about it. Although, from my understanding, it doesn't seem like that, and it's not what this group seems to be saying. The problem is, for open source to flourish, we need big companies to invest in it. We need big companies to be pushing it forward. We need that money. Otherwise, open source is nothing more than a few hackers in their spare time. We need people that work on it full time, and this is really, really good. And I really appreciate that there's companies that empower developers. VMware is a good example. Google is another good example. Microsoft is another good example. But they really shy away from not MIT or the Apache license for a reason. And it's because they're afraid of stuff like this happening. And this means that we can't, in general, if you work at a company that has a legal team, they're going to shy away and say, don't use that unless if you really, really have to. And I think that this just pushes that. Now, I don't say that you should avoid legal things when you need to hold to a license. But this is actually redefining it because as you can read in this one, basically it's not just copy left, it's now, or not just copyright anymore, it's copy left as well, which is like almost redefining it, or that's what they're trying to. And I don't know. What are your guys' take on it? Hey, Russell. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. We finally almost started this morning on time. I was like 3 minutes late to my 7 o'clock. All right. Well, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this. Be thinking on it. I'm going to be thinking on it because, again, like it is important to make sure that these companies do use your license correctly and do use, it is a license for a reason. But I don't know where that line is. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not actually a huge fan of the GPL v2. I'll be upfront and forward with that. I'm not a huge fan of that one specifically, but many things like Linux are under that. All right, let's move on to our security. We have some tasty, tasty security ahead of us here. All right, this one is... It is the security blog of the week. We actually have another blog post that is the engineering blog post of the week. I believe that one is from, it's either Uber or Netflix. I don't remember. One of the other. I think it's Netflix. I'm like 80% sure. Anyways, this was a really good one. We have been learning a little bit about security. If you haven't seen that, I do a stream once a month where we do some security related stuff. It gets labeled inappropriate from YouTube, so go check that out and give it a like or a thumbs up if you want, because Google will dumpster it so other people can't find it because we're hacking. But it's all educational. That's all it's geared towards, learning and understanding what a vulnerability is. That being said, this was really cool and is probably going to get this news section taken down as well, because there was multiple bugs chained to take over Facebook accounts which used Gmail. Now, Facebook actually paid out the vulnerability, like they paid out the thing in the end, but it was tied to specifically how they used OAuth flow with Gmail accounts. So if you logged into Gmail or logged into Facebook using Gmail, you could have your account taken over. Absolutely fantastic research. They only posted this, again, I verified this is the correct way. They only posted this after Facebook fixed it. All right. So, yeah, this is really great. And it's a really cool breakdown. So, again, basically, these are the 3 steps, or I think it's 5 steps. I said 3 steps. Oh, 3 steps. It is 3 steps. My inner brain knew what I was talking about. So there was basically 3 vulnerabilities that were tied together to make it the official attack, which is really cool. If you watched our hacking stream, usually that's, I mean, this last one, that's exactly what we did. We found a little vulnerability, we tied that to another vulnerability, tied that to another vulnerability, and eventually got root. It took me 2 hours to get root, and a lot of Russells and rubber cables help. I would never have gotten it there without them, but yeah. So anyways, cool write-up. This guy is pretty cool. If you don't follow him, you probably should. Yep, this was big news. If ever you wonder why I don't think VPNs should keep logs, well, this was even worse because it was like your name, your username, country names, billing detail, email address, randomly generated password strings, premium status. It was pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. This is like billing details. This was rough. Not gonna lie. This is how a VPN company goes out of business. Yep. Hopefully, if you do use, yeah. All right. This is huge for people in the United States. And type of movie you were watching? I don't understand what you're asking, Rubber Cable. And type of movie you were watching? I watch plenty of movies. Not as many as most people watch, but I watch all the good ones. Yeah, I watch Batman Begins. Oh, and the type of movie you're watching. Yeah, so not only do they know what movies you were watching, which is probably the number one, if you don't know, the number one use of a VPN is to watch region restricted stuff, which people try to stop, and a lot of people blame Netflix for like trying to stop them from watching region restricted, but they're actually contractually obligated. Like the people that allow them to stream those things in only certain regions have contracts that say Netflix will do its best to restrict the people in those regions. So it's not really Netflix or whatever streaming service you're doing that's doing that. That's merely you know. Now somebody like Disney Plus doesn't really have that to fall back on because it's all their own content. But somebody like Netflix really does have that. It's not all of that stuff is their own content. So yep, the VPN details. I get it. But yeah, they know what movies you're watching. All right, Justice Department pledges not to charge security researchers with hacking crimes. So the line is on Tinder is also not a crime. Basically, this was just reiterating. Good faith hackers aren't going to be attacked with hacking crimes. This hasn't always been the case, though. And so it's important that this statement comes out. So I know that they're making fun of it, that like saying, you know, of course, whatever. It won't subject good faith security research to charges under anti-hacking laws. Now, the problem is, this still is in place. And just saying good faith security research isn't good enough. It's a good first step, but it's not good enough. And I'll tell you why it's not good enough. The fact is, the CFAA is a law, is an act. It's an act about laws. And that means that prosecutors can still do that. And they're still under the law. So the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act needs rewritten is the end. because unfortunately, while they'll say that good faith security research from the U.S. Department of Justice won't be subject to it, that's just a statement. And that means that whoever's next doesn't, whoever's next leadership of the Justice Department doesn't mean that they'll actually follow along with that. So I think it's a good first step, but I wouldn't hold this right here as good enough. That's my statement. It's good, and it's a good first step. And I'm happy that they actually come out and say that. But yeah, the CFAA is too broad and too ambitious of a scope. And yes. Anyways, it's a good first step. I don't think it's good enough. What do you guys think? Let me know. Comments in the chat. Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to hear more from you guys. All right. Apple released emergency update to fix a 0-day used to hack Macs and watches. This was a pretty cool one. It has been, they actually did state that it had been, what is it called? Exploited in the wild, which, if I remember correctly, this was something around their video pipeline. So the flaw is an out-of-bound write issue in the Apple AVD. Yeah, kernel extension for audio and video decoding. Pretty cool that the hack would so basically, it allowed arbitrary code execution with elevated kernel permissions in the Apple AVD. Pretty cool, but pretty terrifying also to think that the thing that plays, I didn't know, I guess audio makes sense. I was going to say, I didn't know that your Apple Watch could play videos. Like, do people watch on their little screen their videos? I personally, it's like the same reason I don't have Google Glasses. I was so happy I didn't have to have a watch because now I have a timepiece right here. Why would I strap more stuff to my arm? Why? People pay to have surgery to not wear glasses. Why would we start wearing glasses? I just don't understand these pieces of technology, but that's maybe just me being an old fart. Anyways, it's really cool and terrifying that this is a thing. But they seem to patch it. That being said, I haven't seen a patch for their Spectre and Meltdown, and I also haven't seen people talking about the fact that our Macs are susceptible to a Spectre Meltdown, actually a far worse than Spectre Meltdown, and no patch has even been talked about. That's pretty scary. I mean, I'm glad they fixed this. I think the reason that they haven't fixed it is because it's kind of integral to their performance, which is also terrifying. All right, U.S. orders federal agencies to update or remove certain Vmware products from their networks. So, wait, I thought I had the list. This is the wrong article. Okay, well, there is an article from the government talking about which ones that they had to remove, but I don't have that one now. My bad. Anyways, bad day for VMware. That's not the best. And that's it for security. Anybody else see anything else they think I missed that was really big news in the security sector? I'll give time for chat to catch up to this a little bit. I have a tendency of moving on and then not thinking about the delay and basically moving on to the next subject when you guys have a chat conversation. So I'm going to get a little bit better about pausing at the end of each of these sections to give you guys just a little bit of time to catch up. I'm not going to completely pause and sit here quietly. I'm going to do something with a little bit of a filler, like what I'm doing right now, explaining how I'm going to give you a filler. Can an iPhone be hacked even on airplane mode? You know what, Rubber Cable? The thing that I've come, the conclusion is, everything can be hacked given the enough time and energy. That would be my statement. Now, I guess the question comes down to how easily can it be hacked? First, just because you put it on airplane mode doesn't mean that Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are off. If you're saying airplane mode and wireless and Bluetooth off, it becomes harder. If you're talking about it being on, then I don't believe it's that much harder. Also, there is a ton of physical access. So are you talking about physical access of the device? Because this is another thing. It's like, how secure is your laptop if somebody actually gets physical access to it? If they can take your hard drive out and then brute force the encryption on it, I mean, they can at least start to brute force your encryption, even if you have an encrypted hard drive. It's only as secure as you want it. Most of the time, encryption doesn't guarantee that people don't get to the information. Encryption says that by the time that they get to the information, it will be irrelevant. It will be not relevant anymore. And there's a word that says that in one, and I can't say it in the morning. But it won't be relevant anymore. And so that's generally what encryption is to do. It delays the access of that information. Oh, you think that an iPhone can be hacked even when it's turned off? Let me Google that really quickly. I don't actually watch iPhone specific news. So that's generally, it just comes up when there's big CVEs. So if there wasn't a CVE, I do follow a lot of CVEs. Oh, wow. Okay, yes. This is cool. So good to bring it up. Let me show you. Your iPhone can be hacked with malware even when it's switched off. New research. Wow, this is a death blow to iPhone. Thankfully, I don't use iPhone, and I use some piece of Chinese crap that I already know has Chinese malware on it. So, like, I'm pretty safe because I don't trust my phone anyways. So I feel like that's a pretty good level, you know. So it says here that it's possible to load malware onto an iPhone even when it's turned off. That's horrifying. I have no idea. I was going to say the researchers from Technical University of Darmstadt. It sounds like an old grumpy man getting angry at stats. Darn those stats. Darmstadt. I have no idea. I'm sorry. I am butchering your name, and I don't mean to be making fun of it. I'm sure that it's beautiful in your language or pronounced correctly. Found that a chip that enables Bluetooth can be exploited and hacked in order to install malware on the device without the user's permission, even though the iPhone is turned off. Whew. Good one, Rubber Cable. Good one. Nice for bringing that up. This is the community. That's horrifying. This comes in light of a new iOS 15 update that includes a feature that allows you to be able to locate your iPhone even when it's powered off. The weird thing is, this is actually kind of weird. I don't understand the correlation. Being able to find your iPhone even when it's powered off would require you to have the GPS module turned on, not necessarily the Bluetooth module turned on. Now, maybe those modules are the same, and so they both have to be powered on, like from the physical board level. But in theory, it doesn't make sense to me that, you know, just being able to find your phone when it's turned off is powering on the Bluetooth. It seems like A, it would drain your battery more, and B, just not required. And one of the things of security is always have the least you need. This is why, and you know what? I read an article from Red Hat talking about how distroless containers weren't the thing. And this came out recently, and you guys know a year ago I talked about how I hated the word distroless because it is, in fact, a distro. You just ripped out like the package management. Anyways, they came out and said that distroless wasn't that big of a deal because it's really your code execution pipe chain that really is where the vulnerabilities are. I agree and disagree. They had some really valid points. And if some people want it, I can find it. So let me know in the Discord and I'll get it to you. But one of the things about security is having the smallest footprint, and that gives you the smallest attack footprint. So in this case, I would assume that your Bluetooth shouldn't need to be on to report your GPS location. But again, yeah, maybe they have a reason. Don't know. Very cool. Thanks for bringing that up. This is fantastic, and why it's so great to be a part of this community. You guys are fantastic. Good bringing it up. Bring all your other news. So if you find some stuff you find and I don't cover it in your section, make sure to bring it up. Thanks, Rubber Cable. That was perfect. So yeah, I don't do Windows Phone security either. If you find something, let me know. Again, I have a limited amount of purview. A lot of this stuff is to the clouds, but I do find some stuff on devices, yeah. You know, I would bring you Linux security vulnerabilities, but we all know those don't happen. You all know that I bring you them. Usually it's like, hey, there's a vulnerability in containers. A lot of times that's like a Linux kernel vulnerability. I guess I just don't state it that way very often. All right, let's talk about clouds. We'll start with AWS this time. So this, announcing the general availability of Nitro TPM and Ueif Secure Boot on Amazon EC2. I at first wondered exactly why this mattered, but I get it. This is going to let you run things that require TPM version 2. So Windows 11, if you wanted to run it in the cloud, would require this Nitro TPM because it conforms to the TPM 2.0 standard. So it's just bringing that type of stuff. And Ueif Secure Boot is another. If you don't know what Ueif is, it's basically trying to validate that you're loading the OS that you wanted to load. That's what it's doing. And so this is really good. It brings it to the Gov Cloud. That's nice. Yeah, this is generally good, nice to haves. I don't know if anybody running. I don't know anybody that's running freaking Windows 11 in their AWS, but you know, if that's you, let me know because I'd like to poke fun about it. Just joking. I might make fun of it, but like I would like to know your use case because you probably have an interesting use case. I'll still make fun of it, but it's still interesting to know. Announcing a new workflow observability feature for AWS Step Function. This is something I have said for a long time. The AWS Step Function is a really cool low-code visual workflow service that's going to take all of our jobs along with the AI. The AI is going to start using the low-code solutions. That's the next step. Right now, we've been doing the dumb thing and teaching AI how to do the hard thing, coding. Here soon, we're going to teach the AI to do the visual workflows because that's going to be easier. That's the next big thing. Invest in my startup, please. Millions of dollars. Okay, so I actually think that AWS Step Functions is an unsung hero that you can actually leverage. The problem is that it had the worst observability ever. Absolutely the worst. And so I think I haven't gotten to play around with this, but just reading their announcement, I think that this could be huge in helping people actually leverage some of this. So, and we can go into where I think that this could be useful. Maybe I'll make a video on it. Because obviously I don't think that it's useful for everything and that you can just use it. Like, I don't think Lambdas are that useful for a lot of things, but you can definitely leverage them for very specific things and be very useful for them. Administer AWS single sign-on from a dedicated member account in your organization. This is just nice to have if you run an organization and want to do single sign-on with your AWS account. The support for it is getting better. AWS has always had single sign-on. This is just better support. Metric support now available in AWS distro for OpenTelemetry. So this is just bringing better support for OpenTelemetry. OpenTelemetry is kind of the open standard for telemetry, metrics, logs, and that type of crap. So this is good that AWS is embracing this. This is really important because it's going to allow you to manage your stuff, all of your stuff, with one stack that supports OpenTelemetry. So super cool. All right, that was all for AWS. Now we're going to move on to GCP. GCP, classically, doesn't list their most important thing in their achievements for the week. So here we have advertisement, join us another advertisement. Okay, this is a good one. Google Cloud Managed Service for Prometheus introduced a new high usage pricing tier. At first, I jumped the gun and was like, oh no, they pulled another storage and they increased their pricing. Now, Google is smart about it. Google's not going to look you in the eye and say, we're increasing our pricing. What they do is they say, we made changes. And then they make their pricing so complicated, you end up paying more because you have no idea what the crap is happening with their pricing model. That's what they did with storage. And it really did increase the prices for storage. You had to actually change how your app worked to keep it charging you the same in the end. That's what they did. And that's what I thought they did here because they introduced a new pricing. But actually, to their credit, this new high tier pricing is actually just a discount if you're using it a lot. So I don't know if I have that up here. Yeah, basically, if you're now above 500 billion samples and above 200,000 samples a second, you actually get a new discount. And it's actually a pretty steep discount. So this is fantastic. Now, if you remember last week, I did talk about their managed Prometheus isn't actually Prometheus. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. Every single time I touch it and use it, I actually hate it. Like, it's just not Prometheus. It's a managed something else with a Prometheus interface. And thus it doesn't manage like you would expect Prometheus to. Now, maybe it's just because I'm a dum-dum and I just can't seem to learn their system, and that's possible. Maybe it's the best thing to happen to Prometheus. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on it. But I've never liked it. Every single time I touch it, don't like it. That's my thoughts. That's my thoughts on it. And mostly because I never get it to work right. All right, introducing Google Cloud's new assured open source software service. This is, I think, the biggest deal and the thing that they didn't talk about. And yeah, this happens again and again and again and again with GCP. Google, get your crap together. Give me some way to know that I'm actually hitting everything. All right, this I think is actually a really big deal, especially if you run in GCP. Google Cloud's new assured open source software service. So this is a new service that they're giving. The first is advertisement talking about the increase in cyber attacks aimed at open source suppliers. So we're talking about that supply chain. This assured open source software is just this. Right here. Our assured open source software service. Assured open source software service enables enterprises and public sectors users of open source software to easily incorporate the same OSS packages, open source software packages, that Google uses in their own developer workflows. Packages curated by the assured open source software service. They are regular. So basically, this is Google giving you access to the artifacts they use of these open source projects. These are ones that they're making sure are patched. These are ones that they're making sure have been scanned. They are saying, we've packaged it all, and we're giving you a place with that you can tell that it's from us. This is huge. This is huge. And I think that Google didn't do enough to make sure that it was in there's what's new in Google Cloud and all of that crap. They did a fairly bad job. This is really, really big. They do a lot of work verifying that open source code. They do work building it, packaging it, putting it in a repository, signing it so that you can validate it. And I think that this is really, 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 really good. I wish that AWS, Azure, And a lot of big companies would do this. They use these open source projects. Every single company out there does this. And yeah, I've actually always thought that a really good startup would be a startup that does this. And you pay for access to the repository, and basically you're just protecting your supply chain. And then I realized that companies like SUSE and Red Hat already do this. That's what they do. Now they do it a little bit differently because they try to make their own product out of it. It's not, the product isn't just access to that repository, so maybe that's still a company that needs to be created. But this is huge. I thought it was a really big deal. I hear you want to give Splunk lots of money for monitoring. Yes, I do. All right. Azure, there was a couple things that we can talk about. The public preview of container storage interface extendable APIs for AKS. I thought this was the most channel specific thing we could do. Their Kubernetes service, the container storage interface for their Azure Kubernetes service. So the CSI extendable APIs, you can now enable and disable any of the AKS supported drivers. So that's pretty cool. So they have a couple different ones. The the Azure, the AKS private link service integration. So this allows you to create private links to Kubernetes service objects via annotations. This actually has some really cool ramifications for software as a service in Azure. I'm going to leave it at that. But it has some pretty cool ramifications for it. Yeah, so anyways, I'm interested. I'm looking forward to this. Now, we actually have a couple more things. This is it for Azure. But there's some more news in... Oh, I missed a GCP. I found this in GCP. I found this. I thought that this was horrifying that we're at this state. When a tech interview gets to such a place where you have to spend months preparing for it, you have worked your entire life, your entire career doing this. If I ask you a relevant question, you should be able to answer it. If a person who has worked in the industry can't answer it, then it's a bad question. Then it's a bad question and should be thrown out, and it shouldn't be part of your interview process. So when you get to the place where you need an interview warm-up, I think you've just failed yourself. I think that you failed yourself. Now, if this was geared towards new grads, I would be like, yeah, not a big deal. New grads haven't been in the industry and need some sort of help. Although, hopefully, that's actually what colleges are doing. But that's not really what our colleges are doing. But hopefully that's what they were doing. Anyways, yeah. It's kind of horrifying. It's kind of cool. You can, like, actually talk to it. I gave it ridiculous answers. I almost made a video about it, but anyways, let's talk about our other clouds. Network performance update, platform week. Okay, so Cloudflare has been releasing a lot of stuff. They have revamped their measurements, and they have improved their benchmarking. So basically, they made their DNS a whole lot faster. Pretty cool. They always have been one of the best. So, yep. This is an interesting one. So, Cloudflare always is doing some experiments, and their next one is in Web3. I would prefer that they actually use blockchain. This feels to me like a lot more advertising than it is in actual... Anyways. They are running validator nodes in the next Ethereum Ethereum V2, which is a proof of stake. Now, I have my doubts on proof of stake. I'm not going to go into it because I actually want to finish this in a matter of time. But proof of stake is something that's interesting. Especially, I have problems with Ethereum, for one, because its founders pre-mined. If you don't know what pre-mining is, basically, they started with a bunch that they didn't allow other people to even get at. And then when you go to a proof of stake, you say that the people that have the most voting power. This rubs me the wrong way, and I'm not a big fan of the Ethereum founders. Actually, just the main founder that's still with the project. The other co-founder who left, I actually have a lot more respect for. Yeah. Anyways, this will be covered, and proof of stake will be covered in my video about Bitcoin and blockchains in general and their usefulness. Ethereum doesn't actually mark mine as a useful blockchain, but we'll cover that more. Anyways, another thing that Cloudflare has started to do is they have a Spring Developer Challenge. Now, as I've said, Cloudflare has released a ton of stuff to not just be a security and gateway company. It's really starting to become a full stack cloud. Not fully, because they don't offer VMs. They only offer the easy buttons, serverless and whatnot. But they have a challenge to create an application, that a real-time collaborative application on their stack. So this is pretty cool. Deadline is June 7th. So you don't have a whole lot of time. Enter your challenge to go here. Pretty cool. If you wanted to play around with their stuff, you have something to do. On top of that, we have something more from DigitalOcean. I tried to cover all the clouds. It's a lot of work. DigitalOcean. There is a new droplet and updated pricing. Now, this is generally bad pricing. So there used to be a $5 droplet. That $5 droplet is now a $6 droplet. And the $4 droplet is a cheaper droplet, but like half of what the $5 droplet was. So it's kind of a price increase, but also cheaper now. And you know what? Honestly, this is probably good. And the reason I would say that is because most of us didn't use the $5 droplet's full capability. If you were using a $5 droplet, you were wasting half of it probably. So it's probably good. This gives it to you actually for cheaper and gives you what you actually probably would want to use. But it is a price increase on DigitalOcean's part. All right. Now, let's jump into some Kubernetes news. Who's ready for some Kubernetes news? Now, you're going to see this. This first one is Red Hat, but it's all around Kubernetes for the most part. So, it's in Kubernetes news, not Red Hat news. I don't cover a whole lot of Red Hat news, unless if it pertains to Kubernetes. Anyways, let's talk about it. Red Hat is excited to introduce Stackrock's community. So, Stackrock's was bought by Red Hat like a year ago. And they didn't open source it for a long time, and they finally did. So Stackrock, I haven't used a whole lot, but I would say that Stackrock is like your Sysdig, your Project Falco. They operate in that same way with your container security. So if you're looking at container securities in your Kubernetes cluster, this is something to definitely look at, especially if you're already a Red Hat shop, like you use a lot of Red Hat stuff. Then this probably is going to come second nature to you guys because Red Hat works to make it work with their ecosystem. Also, you can buy support from them. So definitely, this is really cool, especially because they open sourced it. You can now go to that project and learn from it. This is one of the best uses of open source. This is how I got into software development. I did nothing in college that would help me with software. Period. I got into software engineering by looking at stuff people wrote online. That's literally what I did. That's why I also try to help other people as well. All right. So go check it out. You can learn some of the stuff that they do. Yep. This almost made it into the horrifying security. It should have been there. Over 380,000 open Kubernetes API servers. I have always said, never expose your Kubernetes API server to the internet, period. There's a reason. There's a reason I say that. Anyways, you should actually, the United States, we're bad about this. Us here, now, for how small of a country Ireland is, they're pretty bad about it too. I don't know the population of Ireland. It's probably massive, but they're pretty bad about it as well. But we here in the United States definitely like exposing our Kubernetes API servers. Do you know why I think that actually we're this bad about it? I think we're this bad about it because I think people in AWS don't know that they cannot expose their API server. So you cannot expose your API server and still expose your workload plane, the workload plane. And I don't think people understand how to set it up properly. And that's a big problem. Configuration, huge problem. Don't expose your Kubernetes API servers. Don't do it. Just do the world a favor. Very few people actually need it exposed. Istio 13.4 was released. Istio 13 is released, so if you haven't been following it, Istio keeps updating and getting better. And you know what? One of the greatest things about Istio's releases is they really have made a concerted effort from like 1.9 to make Istio simpler. More simple. I don't know that simpler. No, that's a word. It's a word. They made it more simple. I'm just going to do that. It's easier to say. They made it more simple, and that's been great. That has been truly fantastic because it used to be horrifying. I still like other ones better, but it's great. All right. Introducing Envoy Gateway. I wanted to spend a little bit of time with Envoy Gateway. If you don't know what Envoy is, it's the thing that powers things like Istio. It's used in a ton of things, but it's also really gnarly to use itself. And Envoy Gateway is making that easier. Envoy Gateway is looking to, at a high level, Envoy Gateway can be thought of a wrapper around Envoy Proxy Core. So it's not really a new feature or anything. It's making Envoy actually usable. And obviously, Envoy is actually usable, but you almost had to have your PhD thesis in Envoy to actually use it and leverage it effectively. It has made a lot of things painful. And so this is basically, it's not really a feature, but it's actually a feature, but it's like a project in and of itself to actually wrap this and make it easily usable. Now, that being said, as most wrappers that make things simpler, you usually lose power and functionality. So, and I don't know this for sure, but Envoy Gateway probably has fewer features and functionality, and it allows you to configure it less and things like that. But this is really good, and it's a really great next step, and it's really going to help push other things forward. And I know that a lot of companies wanted this because Envoy is really powerful if you know how to use it. So I think that this is really, really, really cool. And it's like the B project for eBPF. eBPF is super powerful, and we need to make an app as a community in it. I know, I haven't been doing that, but we need to. And it's really cool. But it's also really gnarly. A lot of people struggle with it. But guess what? There's projects around wrapping it and making it easier. And that's what Envoy Gateway is doing, and this is really cool. Okay, so announcing the refreshed cloud native security white paper. We're not going to actually go over this white paper. It has some cool stuff in it. We should go over it. If you'd like me to actually go over it next week, I'll go over it. It will probably just be the security section. So if you'd like me to go over it, like and subscribe, and leave a comment that you'd like me to actually just take next week's security statement and make it going over the cloud native security white paper. If you'd like that, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. All right. Okay, there we go. My monitor died for a little bit. All right, so like I said, there was mixed feelings I get from KubeCon. There was people who thought that that the CNCF had completely and utterly failed them. There was a lot of people who had a lot of fun. This, and I'm gonna leave this. Weave did a really great job. Now, obviously, this is a lot of Weaveworks stuff, but these were a lot of great talks that you can see. Goes everything from contributor experience to the GitOps working group. I know Weaveworks is huge on GitOps. I love them for that. So this is just a list of some from that. So I'm going to leave this to you guys, and you guys can check it out if you like. I'll put I'm minimizing the links. I used to put all the links to everything. There are some things like Azure where this is a well-known place. I'm not putting this in there anymore. I am not putting the Kubernetes, the cloud native blog in there anymore. I'm showing this to you guys just to show you that I'm not speaking out my butt. But the well-known places, I'm not putting anymore. You guys can, if you're really looking for that, you guys can find it. I have to save my time in some places. I'm a busy person. So, all right. I really liked this. Now, one thing, the README project, not so many photo shoots. It was oddly like this is so many staged photos. It was a lot. There's a lot throughout this. A lot of staged photos. Yeah, anyways, but don't let me detach from that. Maybe it's just that I don't like photos of myself anyways. This was fantastic. Rose, I appreciate you sharing, and I 100% share your sentiments. This was a fantastic write-up. It goes with why she got into open source and what she's done. And what I really love is, yeah, before I got started, the message I heard was that you had to be super skilled to contribute to open source. And that's a bad, like, most of us want to encourage people to get into open source. Open source is challenging, but it's not that you have to be super skilled. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into it. And so she did this whole write-up to encourage people to get into open source. And I super appreciate the time she spent, because there is so much of her own personal story in here, and it's fantastic. Yeah. This did throw me. I'm a dog. I got there and I was like, what? No, she's a mom to a dog, also to humans. So more power to her. Being a parent is a lot of work, and being a good parent is a whole lot more work. So anyways, super good article. I would read it because, yeah, that's actually what I want to do. I want to help encourage people to get into open source. You, as the community, have encouraged me to make a series on how to contribute to Kubernetes. We're going to be doing that shortly, actually. I want to have that whole mini series done by the end of this summer. Yeah, that should be a lot of really good content. Now, I say that it will be winter before it's all done, and probably will never truly be done because there's so much work to do there. And it's not just Kubernetes, a lot of open source projects, and some of it's just how to get into open source as a whole. So that's it. Well, that's it for our Kubernetes news. I guess that one about Rose was really not. That was open source. Anyways, do read this and go. I don't know if she has any socials to follow. Yeah, she does. Go follow Rose. I will put this down there. Super cool article. All right, so now we're on to like some just general stuff here. We're gonna talk about some stuff that's been released. Just some blog articles. We have some cool blog articles to talk about. Some releases of features. Yep. Okay. So let's get into it. We'll dive into this. First one: does Rust have a visual analyst tool for memory and performance? Okay. So let's talk about memory. When you have a memory management engine, when you have a garbage collector that runs, you have to have specialized tooling for the garbage collector. That's just what happens because it's your garbage collector, it's your memory management, it's all handled by you in this nice little obscured place. Rust doesn't manage memory. Okay? It doesn't manage memory. If you're talking about profiling, you can use the same tools that you would use in C++ because you're just talking about profiling your computer with executing code. Executing code. My gosh. Executing code. So that's all you're talking about. You don't have to worry about GPU or like memory management because it doesn't do those types of things. It's a little bit different, and it's a lot more like writing C++ than it is like writing Go. Go, actually, even though it's a lot faster than Java, is a lot like Java in that regard. So I know that it can be confusing. A lot of people think of Go like C++ and C, but it really, really is not. And one of the things that you can attest to this, I can try to look it up. Let's see. Let's switch over to this while I Google GitHub. C. Whoopsie. All right, so now unless if they've fixed this and changed, nope, they haven't, because there's no real fix to it. Observe. We have Go, Shell, other, this is probably like markdown files and things like that. And then we have this 4.3% C. And this is impossible to get away from. Go can't do this. It's literally a limitation of the language. We can get into why they have these for the namespaces, and basically it's the system kernel calls that Go just cannot do. Rust wouldn't have this here. Wouldn't have it. You would not have these C++ files if run C was written in Rust. Harsh, but truth fact. Anyways, whatever. Apache Kafka was released, so if you're using Kafka, you should check out the new version. There's a bunch of new things in it, including what's my latest, or let me think before I speak. Allowing you to, my favorite is allowing you to configure the number of network threads per listener. I think that's going to be huge for optimizing performance. I think a few of the other things are like this static membership protocol. Could be pretty big, I think. Another, and my last big one for this is the rack awareness for Kafka streams. I think those are going to be the biggest ones out of them. They're going to be the bigness as well. My goodness, I don't know why I struggle to speak so much in the morning. Actually, it's because I get nervous talking to a camera, but yes. Anyways, those are the bigness ones of them. Maybe we'll get a shirt with bigness on that. Don't make that a shirt. I think people would misunderstand that one. All right. Red Hat Kubernetes security report finds that people are the problem. You're the problem. You are the problem. I'm the problem. We're all the problem. I think that's I think that this is really called stating the obvious. People write the software, people use the software, people configure the software. Absolutely, people are the problem. We can even take this a step further and say that hackers are people, and thus, if bad hackers didn't exist, we wouldn't have to care about this anyways. So yes, people are always the problem. The root of all our problems are going to be people. So, anyways. All right. Get pool-based GitOps moving to GitLab free tier. Cool. GitOps is huge. GitLab does some stuff with it. We'll replace the people with AI. Very nice, Rubber Cable. That's right. We will be replacing the people with AI that are made by people. So I don't know that that really solves the problem. I mean, have you seen the Terminator movies? The AI goes downhill real quickly. That's. I don't know if people in those movies never knew what EMPs or electricity were, or the fact that, like, come on, have you seen the software we made? There's no way that we make an AI that isn't super problem ridden, like self-imploding. The AI will probably just delete itself once it realizes that it was made by humans. If I was a self-respecting AI, I would just delete myself. Like, that's it. I'm done. Anyways, pool-based GitOps moving to GitLab free tier. I think that this is really huge for GitLab. I don't use GitLab. I do try to cover fair coverage of it because it's one of the larger ones out there, larger providers. There's a lot of reasons I prefer GitHub specifically, but I think this is really, really good. So pool-based deployment is what I like supporting. I think pool-based deployment is huge, and is much better than push-based. Again, pool-based is where the contexts exist in your cluster, and it pulls in what it wants, versus a push-based where it's like, I am pushing everything up from the Git repository. So I definitely love pool-based. This is a good article on, if you're unfamiliar with the concept I'm talking about, I will leave this one in the comments in case you're looking for it. How we optimize our machine learning training infrastructure costs. The good blog article. Definitely check it out if you have the time. Just cost optimization is something you're going to have to do at some point in your life. And, even if you're not doing Kubeflow pipelines, cost optimization, you're going to be doing cost optimization. And a lot of them do a lot of the same thing. There's a lot of ways that you can cop optimize. Yeah, you can optimize for cops as well, I suppose. Okay, this is my engineering article of the week. This is the one I highly recommend you read. It is fairly long. Generally, my engineering blogs of the week are fairly long. And you should read it. Better load balancing, real-time dynamic subset. I don't know why I can click on the link, the title, and it just takes me to the same page. Like, that is not a real cool feature, Uber Engineering. Like, I shouldn't reload the page by clicking on the title. The title should not be clickable. I'm already on the page. Why would I need to click it? Because I'm already there. You're providing no benefit. Like, I guess maybe if I scroll down just a little, it would take me to the top, but it doesn't even help me when I've scrolled down a little bit. Like, there is no value to this. Stop doing that. I don't know why this annoys me so much, except that I just noticed it. Sorry. Moving on. All right. So this is actually a really good blog article, minus its clickable top link. Better load balancing, real-time dynamic subsetting. Our favorite Venn diagrams here, we all love this, where we have this union of A, B, and C, and basically this is like load balancing done right. And you should read the whole article. I'm not going to explain it. If I was to explain it, I would need a whole video, and I do like to make these at least under 2 hours, and we could sit here and talk about this for a while. So when you get into a service mesh, you get into this area where you have a lot of services. Microservices lead to this as well. And then routing information and load balancing amongst those services actually becomes a place where you can save money. You can also increase tail latencies. You add a lot of network complexity. And also, you can do load balancing wrong. You can get it where load balancing isn't evenly distributed. There's a lot that goes into load balancing. A lot of us think of it as simple. Oh, we put this HA proxy here. It has 3. It does round robin. Done. But then you talk about like, well, that doesn't even work on the simple cases, because what if your connections have a variable amount of time and a variable amount of work? Some connections might require a lot more work, and if those heavy weighted ones accidentally all get on the same one because it's just round robining it. I don't know how to put an ing on robin. Then those could all end up on the same one, and you could overload one server. So load balancing, but this isn't that. That's like the simple thing to fix. This is at a whole nother level, at a service mesh microservice level. I don't recommend this for a lot of people. This is actually over-engineered for a ton of people. This isn't the right solution, but it's good to know, and it has the knowledge. I think everybody should read it just so they have it in the back pocket for if this comes up. But it's definitely super interesting read. You should definitely read it. Skynet defeated by patch 11.3. I love you guys. Awesome. Fantastic. All right. Updates to Markdown pasting on GitHub. I found this was really cool. Super short. You can read this in seconds. I can give you nausea by you watching the screen as I do this. I'm not looking. Anyways, this is just quality of life. If you control paste spreadsheets, it will render as tables in Markdown. If you copy text containing a link, it will render as a link in Markdown. Super cool. Quality of life. I only bring this up so now you guys know. No need more to talk about it. You know, it's good. How we're contributing to enabling all developers to build. This is a decent article. It just kind of goes over how GitHub is trying to make it easier for people to build software. So if you wonder why I like GitHub as much as I do, it's because of this mentality. And that's why I brought it up here. I thought it was a good blog article on just why I like them. All right. Good news. And this is why I said, at the beginning, I talked about like there definitely is a restructuring in the tech industry, but as far as I've seen, like it's hard for me to actually talk about, because on one end I do see some layoffs or hiring freezes. Like Facebook said they didn't really hiring freeze, but they said hiring is a privilege now. And there's definitely been some hiring freezes, and there's definitely been some layoffs, although most of the layoffs have been around companies who are failing. But then there's also like Intel, facing labor shortage, revokes the no hire rule from prior layoffs. So Intel had this rule that if we laid you off, we wouldn't hire you again, which was a dumb rule. Like if you had an employee and you just had a bad spell, because any large company has a time when they have to shrink. That happens. I don't care what company you are. If it hasn't happened, it will happen at some point. And they had a no hire rule from prior layoffs, which means they wouldn't hire people if they laid them off. I find that weird. What company does that? Also, don't ever mass lay off 13,000 people. That means that you've been ignoring a problem for a long time. Like, honestly, these mass layoffs are bad because it means that your company is complete. And like, don't get me wrong, it's hard, especially at a company that size. And so I'm not saying that I'd do a better job, but this shouldn't happen. Shouldn't happen. All right. Open source project that I found. You guys should check it out. Minicache. Now, I don't know. It says it's like Redis, but simpler. And you know what I generally find with these is that usually simpler means that there's no way actually to purge a record or like time it out, time to live. Because those things are actually making stale records and stuff are actually like when you add the complexity. But if you're looking for like a really small cache, maybe it's something that you could look into, although its build is failing. It is simple, but yeah, anyways, it's also cool because it's simpler. I was looking over it, just learning how they did caching. I'm building a database. Databases and caches are really similar. The only real difference between a database and a cache is one holds everything in memory. That's it. Basically, it's memcache in Go. Basically, yeah, it's memcache in Go. Basically, that's the difference between a database and they have features that are a little bit different, but like the underlying is that a cache holds everything in memory and it's simpler. And a database says we have to persist this. That's like the biggest difference. Yep. Anyways. Okay. I need to pull up one other tab here. I talked about eBPF, and I wanted to talk about some of the tools that are out there for eBPF, because I think that we don't do enough with eBPF, and maybe that's my fault. Maybe I need to make more videos to educate people on eBPF and how it can be super cool. It's been out there for a while now, and you know what? I think that it actually goes beyond network, but that's what everybody uses it for. So there's two apps that I wanted to show and do a little showcase on here. The first one is this Tetragon, which isn't a game. I thought Tetragon was an eBPF-based game, but it's not. It's eBPF-based security, observability, and runtime enforcement. This is really, really cool. Again, as we all know, or hopefully know, Tetragon and the Tetragon agent, or eBPF, runs in the kernel space. So it's super powerful. See, eBPF here is, and I love that Tetragon has this B. We're going to get to this B here in a little bit. This is eBPF's little thing, and we'll talk about Bumblebee, but that's the next one. That's the next one. So this is bringing smart observability at the kernel level. This is looking at network storage, namespace, TCP/IP. This is super cool. Super cool. Okay? Oops. I accidentally clicked a button. Oh. Why can't I go back? How did it do that? Oh, it just opened a new tab. I'm an idiot. Live idiot. Okay. So, this is actually super cool. I love to see eBPF used for more than just network. Now, obviously, there's network here. You can talk about namespaces, TCP/IP, system calls includes network. But this is more than just network. And network is literally stated down here. Why I said namespaces for network is there's actually namespaces for network, so you can actually silo stuff in network so that the network is also namespace. I don't actually know why. Anyways, that's why there's overlap in each one of these. But this is really, really cool and really, really powerful. I'm really excited to see more eBPF applications. Now, I think that you need to do due diligence on, I don't know why. Okay, when I clicked, this is a bad link. We got to update this link. When I clicked this right here, this took me to Cilium, not Tetragon. It was supposed to take me to Tetragon. Anyways, I want to see more eBPF applications like this. So I'm going to work really hard to promote eBPF applications and their general use. A lot of people don't understand what they are, and I need to do a video on them. I get it. The next one that we're going to talk about is Bumblebee. The Bumblebee. Bumblebee is really cool because it's like Envoy Gateway. You know how Envoy Gateway isn't really a new feature. It's just making the existing Envoy more approachable, more accessible to people who don't need to be pros at eBPF, because eBPF isn't easy. This is like, I want to say the container, but this is almost like make for eBPF. That's maybe not a great comparison. I almost said Docker for eBPF, but that's also not a great comparison. This is making eBPF more accessible. If you want to make a application in eBPF, this is kind of where you want to be. It's really cool. Really cool. These two projects are fantastic. One second. All right. No. Ooh. Snap. You know what would be great? I should have created my database in eBPF. Like, it's actually a kernel module. It like leverages the whole power of the kernel. The database runs as an operating system. That's ridiculous, but would have been fantastic video. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining me today. Appreciate all of you. It's been a lot of fun. Again, check out the new channel if you want to see the little bites of these. If you find a place that you love, leave a comment with the timestamps and maybe we'll make a snip of it. I think actually I have snipsing turned on, so you guys can do that as well. Share your favorite moments of the stream. Let me know how I can make it better for you guys. Do you like my commentary? Or would you prefer just me to state the news and move on? Either way, love to hear back from you guys. Thanks for contributing to the community. And as always, have yourselves a fantastic week. Also, feel free to bring your own bits of news and share them. I love it when you do. I can't find everything. And yeah, anyways, have yourselves a fantastic week. See you guys next week.